Welcome back to the channel, Bridging the Gap, Student to Engineer, where STEM professionals provide advice to students. Today's deep dive is into the University of Maryland. This, like most of our videos, was a request, so if you have other requests that you'd like to see, please leave a comment and we will add you to the list. University of Maryland makes its data available through a PDF report that's titled the 2024 Graduation Survey. We are going to start with the James Clark School of Engineering for the University of Maryland and their data. We have skipped about half of this document. There is a repeat of a lot of this information from school-wide, plus a little bit more information. So if you are seriously considering University of Maryland and want to know more about where students get internships and those types of things, please check that out. We will provide the link to this PDF in the comments to this video. All right, so let's get into the engineering results for University of Maryland. The first thing that we notice is that the knowledge rate is really low. That means that the university does not have the complete data for all of their graduates in this data set. They only have 44% of grads in this data set. And also, while this is the 2024 graduation survey results, the School of Engineering says that it's grads between August 2022 and 2023, which is the year before. So I don't have an explanation for why this is the year before, but it looks like we can just use it as it is, understanding that it is a year before. There was in some schools a change in the grads getting jobs, particularly in computer area and sometimes in aerospace. So we'll just take all this as the latest information we can, and when University of Maryland releases their next grad survey, we will update this video. All right, so let's just go into the graduate outcomes. They are quoting a career outcome rate of 93%, which is good, but they are also assuming that their unresolved percent is negative. So their actual student outcome rate is somewhere between 93 and 99%. I'm getting that by using the unplaced percent being 1%. In the way that the University of Maryland does these surveys, they do an initial survey upon graduation and then attempt to follow up with the grads 6 months later. The 6-month is the industry standard for these surveys, and so they are trying to follow the industry standard. They're just not getting results, responses from some of their grads at that point and still want to include them. And they're also not able to find information about them on the internet, which is one of the methods that the school uses. So regardless of where that falls, the University of Maryland has somewhere between a 93 and a 99% positive outcome rate for their engineering grads. Both numbers are good, and both numbers indicate that this can be a very good school for those who are interested in it. One thing I do want to point out is the third line down on this graduate outcomes table. The percent of students in engineering continuing their education is 15%. That is pretty low. What I usually see is 25% continuing their education immediately. Some schools are up to 50% if they've got programs that help you go directly from a bachelor's to master's. So 15 is pretty low. Usually we see that at schools that are focused on hands-on learning, more focused on going out and getting a job rather than the theoretical, continue on to grad school, do research type of education. So something to be aware of if you do plan on getting your master's immediately after getting your bachelor's, just be aware of how the university is set up, and I would ask questions about undergrad research and those types of things. One thing to note about engineering is that generally people recommend getting a job right away and then having the company pay for your master's. So you wouldn't necessarily fall into this continuing education category in the graduate survey, but you would be getting your master's relatively shortly after you graduate. So the next section on the report is the nature of the position. So the University of Maryland asked the grads who said that they were employed how that employment applied to their career goals and to their field of study. This is really nice that they ask that. There's not very many schools that ask and report this data, so it is especially nice. What we'd like to see is the red sections here directly related should be as high as possible. The engineering grads from University of Maryland are reporting that their first job is directly related to their major, much higher rate than the university as a whole. While fewer of them report it being aligned with their career goals, one of the nice things about getting an engineering degree, particularly if your degree is in a core engineering like mechanical, electrical, civil, chemical, those are examples of the core engineering. Those engineering specialties or disciplines can be applied to lots and lots of different industries. So if you want to go into the aerospace industry and you major in mechanical or electrical, for example, you may very easily fit into roles within aerospace. Where if you get a degree in aerospace specifically and you try to get a job in another industry, it will be harder for you. So because of the flexibility of engineering degrees, particularly those core ones, it makes sense to me that there would be a pretty significant difference here between grads who feel like their jobs are related to their career goals and grads who are finding those jobs that are related to their major, because their major is going to be applicable to a lot more than what they thought that they maybe wanted to work in. So my advice, if you are graduating and you're looking at options, you probably went into engineering because you had a single thing or something that you were really excited about, or maybe while you're in school you got that passion and you wanted to follow that path. It's okay to do other things, particularly when you graduate. Go find out something else that's out there that you didn't know was out there. I often tell students that for every job you know about, there's about 1,500 you don't know about. And even when you get into the industry, that is the case. So explore, follow a path that is related to your major, maybe not what you think your passion is, and you might discover a new passion. The next section is on salary. 50 percentile within $80,000 is a good number that we're seeing across the industry right now. So good indication that not only is University of Maryland placing their grads well, but they are in jobs that are high paying and rewarding them for that engineering degree. So the next thing to look at is the employment search information. The reason this is important is because when you're in school, you're about to graduate, trying to get through those last few classes while also worried about becoming an adult and finding a job. You really don't want to have to do that on your own. Ideally, you would go to the Career Center, you would go to a website or a career fair that's set up by the Career Center, and you would find something. So what I'd like to see about grads getting jobs is what I'm seeing here for University of Maryland. First of all, almost half of them are getting it through their internship, and that is great. University of Maryland is helping students get internships and then stay with those internships beyond graduation. That is perfect. It also highlights the importance of having an internship. If you don't have the internships, then your likelihood of getting a job in general is lower, but also you're going to miss out on this 47% of students getting their full-time job through their internship. But the second most common way for engineering grads at University of Maryland to get a job is through the career fair set up by the Career Center. What happens at career fairs is that companies come to the schools that they have confidence in and they recruit students, and they're wanting to get a lot of the students from these particular schools that they have confidence in. Typically, even with large companies, they won't go to very many career fairs. And so you really want to go to a school that has career fairs where companies are coming specifically to find grads. So for a third of the engineering grads to get their jobs through there is wonderful. And then also the University of Maryland online job search is a great way for students to get that. There's always going to be some students who get their jobs through looking independently or through contacts they have, but I think that the results here are just indicating that the school is doing a good job of helping students. They also provide a list of samples of employers and positions that are reported. So as you look at these, there's a lot of engineering titles, a lot of companies that are focused on a lot of technical areas. So SpaceX, Collins Aerospace, those types of things. Clark Construction, lots and lots of engineers. But you'll also see some like Deloitte and Geico that aren't necessarily tech companies, but are hiring engineers to do things for them, which is great. It just indicates that with an engineering degree, you can go to a lot of different places. Don't limit yourself to companies that sound like they are technical. Along those lines, a lot of these titles have engineer in them, but some of them don't. So quality assurance specialist, I used to be one of those myself. Good thing to get into if you are an engineer and detail oriented and like processes and process improvement. I do want to point out this one in particular, manufacturing leadership program. A number of companies will hire engineers right out of graduation to go into leadership programs. They know that if you have an engineering degree, you have a solid base behind you and that you have gone through a lot to get that degree. So putting you into a rotation program or some other leadership development program makes a lot of sense for them because they can get you to a point where you can be a leader in their company sooner through that program. Employment locations is important. University of Maryland is a public school. Often the more regional public schools will have very, very high rates of students staying in state. University of Maryland does not have that. They send their grads all over the place, and even outside of the Maryland, DC, Virginia area, you've got quite a number of grads going all over the US. So if you are from Maryland but don't want to stay there forever, and it's the best value for you, go to the school and then find a job elsewhere afterwards. Alternatively, if you're from outside of Maryland and it's a good opportunity for you to go there, there's nothing that says you're going to be stuck in that area if you don't want to. On the other hand, elsewhere in this document that we won't cover, there is a list of internship employers, and on that list are quite a number of U.S. government entities that that University of Maryland students have opportunities to intern at that would be harder for students who are not in the area. So if working for the federal government and the USDA or the Forest Service or Department of Energy or any of those types of places is of interest to you, University of Maryland is a good place to get an internship there. On the bottom of the screen is a section that I want to point out. So starting a business, in the university-wide section, they have quite a number of students who are graduating and going on to starting a business. In engineering, they had one. So this is not a focus for the university, not a focus for the school getting their engineers to create their own businesses. That is not the case in all schools. There is a growing movement within engineering schools to look at how do you incorporate entrepreneurship into technical education, because there are a lot of very successful business people who have started because they created something as an engineer and went on to create very successful organizations around that. So if schools can give you that experience as an undergrad, that is excellent. I know a couple schools. There's Endicott College in Massachusetts and Colorado School Mines in Colorado that are starting to do this and have programs for it. If you are interested in something like this, please leave a comment or a question and I will create a video about it. At this point, it's not high on the list, but if I get comments, it will become higher on the list. So a number of universities, including the University of Maryland, like to talk about out of classroom experience beyond just internships and co-op work experience. This question on their survey looks like it attempts to do that. I'm not going to get into it too much, except for to point out one thing. Study or work abroad is 21%. In a school of engineering, to have 1 in 5 grads have had some sort of abroad experience while they're in school is excellent. I meet a lot of engineering students at other schools who will tell me things like, well, study abroad didn't fit in my program, or I didn't have opportunities, or there was nothing for engineering, or there's no specific engineering study abroad program, so I couldn't do it. If that's something that you want to do, which I highly encourage everyone to do, University of Maryland has a pretty strong program, it looks like, and they're going to help you do that and get you to a position where even as an engineering grad or engineering student, you have the opportunity to get that international experience. Internship participation is the #1 indicator of whether you're going to get a job after graduation. So it is very important. We saw in the earlier data that 47% of University of Maryland engineering grads got a permanent job through their internship. So what this is showing us is that quite a number of the University of Maryland engineering grads, by the time they have graduated, have multiple internship experiences. At the top, they're saying that 88% say that they have had at least one. Those are great numbers. Another thing as we scroll down is internship compensation. So the industry guidelines is that for companies is that all internships should be paid. The University of Maryland interns are getting paid for the vast majority of them. There are occasional ones that aren't getting paid, but I would say if you are looking for an internship and it's not paid, you should continue looking or ask them why. You know, if you're working for a nonprofit or something like that and you feel like you want to donate your time and you can afford that, then that is great. But if it is a for-profit entity, it really should be paid. And along the lines of getting paid, if you look at the bottom here, it says that the median reported income is $22 an hour. If you're looking at how you're going to get pay for your school and you need to rely on that summer intern to make that money, or if you just want to figure out how much you're probably going to make for the summer, using a $22 an hour average or median times 40 hours a week times a 10 to 12 week internship is a good way of calculating that. Now, the median reported income being 22 does not mean that after your freshman year you're going to get a job making that much money, but over the course of your undergraduate experience, it's a good number to use. As I mentioned, this PDF from the University of Maryland is 137 pages. There's a lot more information in here that we did not cover, the vast majority of it unrelated to engineering. But if you want to get more information about their methodology or other things about the school, please use the link that is in the comments, and we'd like to hear from you on how this was helpful. If you have any feedback, we would love to hear from you. Leave a comment. Please like the video and share with friends. Thank you.